Thanks for being here. So, quick story. Woodstock in 1969. There were about 250,000 people there, but they have done studies about the amount of people who claim to have been there, and there's something like in the millions. I'm hereby naming this is going to be the Woodstock of Casual Connect 2015. There's going to be so many people talking about this panel, and you're the ones who were lucky enough to be here. That's how good it is. So I'd like to get started with introducing Martine, who is our hometown advantage. She has a ton of experience from different game companies as a consultant. Right now you're affiliated with FGL, history at Ubisoft, and yeah, a bunch of others. So welcome, Martine. Then we have Saad from Miniclip, running the by far best pool game out there, and knows a ton of stuff about this thing as well. And yeah, a staple at conferences. I'm sure many of you have seen him or know him. There's few people I know who know as many people as he does. Then we have the ace in the sleeve from Finland, Wilhelm from Rovio. So Wilhelm is responsible for all of Rovio's third-party stuff, including Rovio Stars and that. And well, in my opinion, Rovio is probably the company that is the most advanced and really the best at integrating ads in a way that enhances the gameplay experience. So it's going to be great to hear a few things from Wilhelm. And then we have Baptiste from Paris, who is with Ubisoft, coming with an experience from a lot of a lot of experience from the gaming industry, from Gameloft and Ubisoft. So this is the panel. Please take a seat. Yes. Awesome. I like that. That's good stuff. So, we're here to talk today about in-game ad monetization, which is something that is growing. It's becoming bigger and bigger and more important. I want to start the thing by asking you guys. So the fellow from Google who was right before, he had an example up on the screen with a company that was making 75% revenues from in-app purchases, 25% from ads. And in my experience, the percentage from ads keeps growing. A couple of years ago, it was 5-10, you know, beer money. Now it's summer party money a few years ago, but now it's actually becoming a very valid revenue stream. So what are your thoughts on this? Like, how far can this go? And I would like you to think of it from two sides, either from the very casual game, an endless runner or something like that, it's hyper casual, but also, you know, if you're a Clash of Clans or if you're Game of War, one of these super high monetizing games, is there space in those games as well for extra monetization through ads? Let's start with Baptiste.
At Ubisoft, so we have been using advertising in our free-to-play games for a year and a half now, and we've seen figures from 10% of overall revenues up to 35%, depending on the genre, obviously, but not only. Obviously, it depends as well on how many networks you will integrate and how much ad intensity you put in your game. Basically, how many times you will expose your players to advertising, etc. What type of ads, rewarded, non-rewarded, interstitial, etc. But yeah, 35 is I think really high. I would not expect all the games to reach that, and I would not hope for all the games to reach that point neither. Basically, it depends on how well your game monetizes as well, and the best monetizing game will obviously have a lower share of ads, and this is what we see in our own titles.
So, yeah, I'm Wilhelm Rovio. It really depends on the game. At Rovio, I think one of the highest ad monetizations we've seen was in Retry over this fall, and it's due to many factors. But the ad integration was quite deep in that, and there was even sponsored levels in that game. One was a sponsored YouTube level, so we work quite closely with brand advertisers in that shape. We've also seen that over the last, I want to say, 2 to 3 years, we've taken a step and really maximized the CPM across the board. We actually show far less advertising today in the games, yet we make a far larger portion of revenue from those. So really making sure that the advertising actually makes sense in those games.
Cool.
No, I just want to change the pattern. So how you doing, Martin?
All right.
Yeah, so for us, it's basically more than half of the revenues currently coming from in-game advertising, and it's still growing. And one of the reasons why that is because we see the type of ads are changing; they're becoming more creative. Of course, there's all like these, the offer walls and the rewarded videos. There's posticial ads, and those kind of things where it's more and more formats that are not necessarily really interrupting the gameplay. They can actually add something to the gameplay. And what we see with our games that are mainly targeted at an audience of women 30+, users really appreciate it, especially if they can get something in return for watching a 30-second video, they'll do it over and over again.
I'd love to just add one thing. We saw recently when we experimented turning ads on and off for payers, on and off, and certain portions of advertising on and off for certain segments. And we did see that for payers, actually, the reward videos, they wanted them there. And we took them away. We got backlash from players saying, hey, give me back my reward videos. These are really like a key element in the game.
Yeah, we all saw that. We saw that too, yeah. Incentivized video definitely works really well. But I mean, just to drive home where this is going, coming from the web, Miniclip, especially in Casual Connect, you'll know we were a Flash Games site for many, many years. And I can tell you this, if we get the CPM rates that we have on web coming over to mobile, the game changes completely. Like, then ad monetization might even become your core focus for games like Retry or single button stuff. I mean, look at what Ketchup are doing and some of the other guys, Flappy Bird. I mean, I was talking about this a while ago, like with the amount of attention, impressions and engagement that game had, that should have been grossing more than Clash of Clans on that day. If the ads were there, if the technology was there, it could have totally done that. Unfortunately, we're catching up. As all the companies out there who are trying to talk to us will tell you, they got more and more sophisticated things. But it also comes down to what do we want to do? As game makers, we want to make games. And then what's your business model? I don't see in the hardcore games those users responding to, unless it's incentivized ads, excuse me, that they would actually just have interstitial after interstitial after interstitial. I think there has to be some sort of quid pro quo for that user looking at an ad. They need that. Whereas a casual user, I'm sure everyone in this room has said, oh, my mum now starts playing mobile games, and it's probably Wilhelm's game. And that's what my mum plays. And those users will not do an in-app purchase. Just because they've taken the leap to play a game. For them to then make money or a purchase in that game, I think is still too much for them. But then watching ads, they're used to that now, because we kind of pummeled them all in there. Yeah. So I think this is definitely going to grow. I think you're right. We're going to see the revenue split between ads and direct monetization increase in the favor of ads for sure, especially in casual.
So then let's put Wilhelm a little bit on the spotlight here, because I'm such a big fan of, and whenever I talk to developers and try to convince them about, talk about incentivized videos or incentivized advertising in general, I tell them all there's two games you should be playing. You should be playing Angry Birds Epic and you should be playing Angry Birds Go, because it really feels to me that, and I would like to hear sort of a little bit of insight maybe from Rovio if you can share. How do you work with your game designers in terms of thinking about ad monetization, because the integrations feel so organic and they have such a positive impact on the gameplay experience? If there's anything you can share there.
Yeah, absolutely. So both cases these are external products. Epic was built by Chimera, and Angry Birds Go was built by Exient in partnership with Rovio. In these cases, I think it's a combination of our own PM, EP, and producer, as well as our in-house ad sales, and I want to even say ad consultancy group. Rovio has its own in-house ad sales team that are incredibly professional in providing guidance on how to integrate and how to integrate well. And in fact, I mean, I don't want to call it very unique, because you're like a consultant for anyone in this room, wanting to have good insights into how to do it well. In those cases, both Epic and Go, it was an inherent design element from the ground up. How in which places can we actually place reward videos and sponsored power-ups. There are those in Go, so that they make sense and that they also make sense for the advertiser. And especially, I want to call out Go as a little bit of a special case, because there we worked really close with, for example, State Farm, the insurance company in the U.S., and they've done really like amazing, rich sponsorships inside of the games that have, well, the uptake in consumer space has been phenomenal. They've been super happy about it, and it's been a really good experience.
Great. We touched on it a little bit before, and I would want to talk about it briefly, not maybe going too deep, but like you mentioned, there's a bunch of different ad formats that keep popping up now, right? So I would say the three classic would be banner interstitials, some type of offer wall, or videos. But there's more and more stuff happening there. So there's streamable, playable demos of games, very interactive type of rich media formats where you scratch things on the using the touchscreen technology to a very nice degree. Is there something that you think stands out that you think look really promising? Or I mean, traditional advertising is, it's print or it's video, like televisions or TV or banners, what you have on the web. Are those going to be the main ones, or could there be something mobile, touchscreen specific that could have a, impact? Martin?
Well, I wish I could predict that future, because then I'd know which company to work with.
Or start. Come on.
Right. So, well, another interesting thing that I kind of see happening is more and more kind of social ads, things like social service integration, where people can kind of recommend their games to their friends and get a reward for that without being the typical spammy Facebook play Candy Crush Now thing. So more like sort of, it's on, I mean, if there's a company here in the Netherlands, Get Social, that I used to work with, we're actually working with that now, and I think they're now implemented with Ruzzle. So, there's all kind of these new sort of initiatives, and for us, it's always a matter of just testing it out. With FGL, we're kind of agile, so we're always kind of open to just test out a new service. So
what's the best thing you've tested in the last year? Names?
Branded rewarded videos. Actually, a company called MediaBricks, and it's just kind of a sort of standard rewarded video service. But the fact that they really focus on brand content is just a wonderful match with my kind of demographic that I work with. It works actually a lot better than the typical game cross-promotion advertising. And I understand that doesn't work for everyone. There might be other demographics that are just not interested in seeing ads about insurances and cars and shoes, but for example, for my demographic, it really works very well.
Yeah, MediaBricks, that's an interesting company, because Rick Neal was there, right? So when I have a conversation with him, this is where we need to get to, I think. Like, the NFL has 22 breaks in any football game, or American football game. That's mandated by the league. Right? That's crazy if you think about it, right? So the league also then invented the 2-minute warning is so they can cut to a break. And everybody was like, wow, this is going to ruin the game. This is going to destroy American football. Now you go to the Super Bowl, and I've said this before, people watch the Super Bowl for the ads, right? I mean, even the Clash of Clans ad, Hero Charge, ads doesn't have to be a bad thing. And I think that's the point. Brands for us, when they start coming in, we'll really, really like that. We'll appreciate that, because at the moment it's just TV shows advertising TV shows, or films advertising films, and we do need to bring those guys into the ecosystem, because then you're not having the internal battle. I don't know if you guys have this battle, but we do, where our project manager was saying, well, why do we want to promote that game? It's going to cannibalize our users, or the users are going to leave. And if you have a brand, that's not a problem. And we've seen great engagement from users. Users want to see that stuff, actually. Coke and Pepsi needs to start spending money in mobile game advertising. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, or have seen similar things.
Yeah, it's something that I've been hearing a lot from the studio teams about. We don't want to promote that game or that type of game, or well. My take on that is that we try to make good games. We're kind of proud of them. We think they're good. We think our players like them, and we're not afraid of competition, basically. So I think it's just fair for us to leave room to other advertisers and other publishers to expose their game to our players. We're quite confident that they're going to come back to our. And if we can make money out of it on top, we don't see a reason why not to do it. And then, if the game is not good, then we really need to have advertising in it to at least try and turn some profits out of it. So, in both cases, I think we have to do it, and we'll continue doing it. So, regarding what you were saying about NFL and Breaks and stuff, I think it's interesting because we have quite mixed feelings about sponsored stuff in game and native ads and having advertising being so intertwined within the game and the gameplay that at some point players could just mix up and consider advertising as part of the game and stuff. So and I think what you were saying is quite interesting, because basically in a football game in the US, you never mixes the football game with the advertising content, and that's what we're trying to do as well, is to really separate clearly. Okay, we offer you a free-to-play game, make use of it, have fun, etc. But on the other hand, we're going to as well show you some ads, and it's two different kind of experiences that you may like or not. That is the way it is, and we just don't want to confuse our players with what's not real gameplay.
I mean, it seems to me, from what I hear and what I believe, and I think is shared in the panel as well, and it would be also great to hear if there's someone in the room here who is working directly representing a brand or representing a brand advertiser. I mean, getting the brands to start spending, if they were to take 10% of what they spend on TV globally, and the global TV business is anywhere between 50 and 60 billion, right? Something like that. Huh? Maybe it's trillion. A lot of more numbers than I know how to deal, or more zeros than I know to deal with. If only 10% of that were to start migrating towards gaming, towards these devices, which are always connected, always there, always trackable, it would have an enormous impact on the industry. I saw someone posted on Facebook this week that last year the gaming industry, for the first time, was bigger than Hollywood in terms of general, like, consolidated revenue or what have you. And if we get 10% more of that, I mean, that's going to far more than double the industry as it is. So what do we need to do as an industry to, bloody hell, like, how do we get Coca-Cola in here? Why isn't Coca-Cola here? Who's from Coca-Cola? No? Pepsi? No? So why aren't they here? What do we need to do? Please solve this in 50 words or less.
So I do think that it's absolutely a question of education. For traditional brand advertisers, suits and whatnot, mobile sounds a little bit scary. Gaming is, that's kid stuff, weird stuff. So it's a question of education, and I hope as Rovio and anyone that actually that already has an IP of magnitude, I think those players have to do a little bit of legwork to educate brand holders about this space. And as I already mentioned, this is something we actually do and try to take quite seriously in having our own ad sales team, our own ad technology, our own ad mediation, and we do go out and we do pitch to the big brands about this. But I think, like, maybe it was on the call we had before this, that it would be really good if we would go to brand conferences, to advertising conferences, and speak about mobile games as an industry. It'd be very helpful for everyone.
So yeah, that's exactly what we talked about. I mean, I have the benefit of being based in London, so there's a lot of those advertising agencies around us, and I've literally gone into those companies, spoke about mobile in general, like not even talk about games, just let's talk about mobile in general and engagement numbers, and they didn't know. And that was amazing to me. Given all the trend reports that they get given all the kind of trend spotting they do, they didn't have a clue. And when I started talking about Clash of Clans and Candy Crush they knew because King has done a good job of having offline advertising. But Clash of Clans, on the other hand, they were all like, whoa, what's that? Which is ridiculous for anybody in this room to think about, right? Wilhelm, you know, again, it's going to be companies like Rovio with Angry Birds because people know that. But yeah, we're going out there and we are having to say to these people, this is a viable entertainment form. It's where people are engaging. And actually, what they talk about all the time is this thing called dwell time. And that's what they care about, right? That's their metric. Brand's metric is dwell time. And the dwell time that they get on TV ads nowadays with TiVos and TVRs is almost non-existent if you think about it. Who record? I don't watch Game of Thrones live. I wait an hour so that I can forward through the ads. I'm going to admit that right now, but that's why I pay for my Sky subscription in the UK. So the dwell time on those campaigns is so low. Yet the TV companies, the broadcasters, are trading off the fact that they have X million people watching. Whereas in a mobile game, you know, especially in a game like, say, for pool, for instance, is a very good example. You're on our table, for instance. We could brand the back of that, and we've been telling them this stuff. For other games, you have that. I know you had the Jenga integration, and you know, in Hungry Shark, you guys do some great stuff with Shark Week and Discovery. You can make it far more intuitive, and that dwell time that they talk about, they will get minutes a day, which is what they are craving. So it's us telling them, every developer here, every ad network, everybody should be out there telling them at other conferences, not just the games conferences, this is what our space is doing. And that improves the entire ecosystem for all of us. So yeah, get out there and talk to people. Talk to non-gaming people.
Yeah, it's true actually, and you know I've been doing that actually in the last couple of years, going to a few of these conferences. You know, there's some big ones out there like AdTech and DMexco. First of all, when I go there, I'm the only person in jeans and a t-shirt, you know, so I draw attention. And well, yeah, I mean, when you start, like you say, when you start talking to these people, they just have no idea about the metrics, and you tell them about the daily active users, and they're like, no,
Yes, not possible.
not possible. Yeah, so it's. Right, and it's things that, you know, we kind of assume everyone knows that because we're in a bubble, but you know, as soon as you step out of that bubble, you realize that there's kind of a, you know, there's billions of dollars to educate basically.
Yeah, on that I wanted to share with you one of the issues we met with Just Dance Now. I don't know if you're familiar with the game. Basically, it turns your smartphone into a controller, and you dance in front of your TV, smart TV, PC, whatever second screen that is connected to the internet. And what we wanted to do there is to offer a free-to-play experience subsidized by web video advertising, meaning that before each dance you would have to watch for a web-based video ads. And we are quite happy with the number of downloads, number of users. We reached like quite quickly 10 million downloads, and then we started to talk with all the ad exchanges on web and direct advertisers and agencies, and everybody was super excited. Just Dance, wow, it's fantastic, it's a super brand, and it's a super qualified audience, because we know it's mainly girls from 10 to 25, and depending on the period of time in the day, we know that the audience will be changing and stuff. So it was quite qualified, quite interesting, and then what happened is that we realized that we were not able to compete against our web competitors, who were, for instance, in France, Le Monde.fr, the web news, and it was the same all over the countries we were working on. Basically, we had a huge base, what we thought of being a huge user base, but when it turns into local countries, we were totally dwarfed by all the news sites. And then when we go and talk to advertisers in France or in London or wherever in the world, we're like, yes, so we have this amount of video we can show every day to our users. And they were like, yeah, I just don't care. I don't want to spend time on that. It's nothing to us. And in France, it was like maybe 100K views per day, to be compared with 3 million a day for Le Monde, or even more for other web news. And this is an issue as well that we have to think about and to find ways of coping with that. And what could it be? So one solution we have identified obviously is to go and sell worldwide inventory, but then you're not talking to local advertisers anymore. So it's okay for Coke and Pepsi and stuff, but obviously not the local brands. And on web, at least, what I didn't know is that most of the budgets are being handled at a local level. So what do we do now? What do we do now is that we're going to put ads on the smartphone.
So, to summarize, everyone, go after the brands. It helps us all. Let's switch gears a little bit, go a bit more nuts and bolts of what we're doing with in-game ad monetization. And I don't want to talk more about formats or actually how to do it in the game. There's been other good discussions about that. What I want to talk about is two things first. I want to talk about analytics, and I want to talk about mediation. So let's start with mediation, and then from there we go down to analytics. Who here, it feels to me like in the last 18 months, every company and their grandmother either are building their own mediation platform, or they are becoming a mediation provider from having done other things. So what value does it provide, as you see? Do you have experiences working with external mediation platforms? The big guys among you, I'm sure you have your own internal stuff, because maybe there's a breaking point where it makes sense to do it yourself instead of have someone else do it. Where does that point lie, and what have your experiences been in general?
So we're one of those companies who built their own mediation platform. One reason to do that is because company X works with company ABC, and then there's company Y, and that works with DEF. But you basically want to work with A and D, and then you have to integrate multiple mediation platforms. So you still kind of have the same SDK problem. So we decided we'll build our own, so we can integrate.
But let me jump in there. Okay, so now I'm sorry for being rude, but I want to see: is there really an SDK problem? Is that a problem, really?
Well, we work with a lot of different indie developers who all have their own way of coding, and it's not always the best. Let's be honest. So if you have just one single SDK integration as stable as possible, it's avoiding a lot of problems with QA. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
And having our own mediation basically gives us the opportunity to fully control what is shown where and which partners we work with. So that has actually, for us, resulted in very high eCPMs. So.
Yeah.
I hate that we even have to make our own mediation tool. It's crazy. We're game developers. We shouldn't be making our own mediation tools, because the SDK is the problem, right? I don't know if I should say this on stage, but how many SDKs have you guys all been pitched, and it's like, oh, it's easy, it'll take you like 2 seconds, like 2 minutes. Trust me, it's one line of code. Hundreds, like it's never one line of code. It always takes a long time. And with the amount of SDKs that are out there, like some games, especially the lower binary games, which is important for the Asian market, which we need to get to, some games could be more SDK than actual game, which is ridiculous to think about. So yeah, it is a problem. Mediation's important. Of course it's important, because it allows you to have access to all of the other regions, right? So one partner might be really strong in the US, one partner might be really strong in Western Europe, another really good in like India. So you do need to have that to just essentially expose and get the greatest return. But somebody should solve it for us. Somebody should just fix it. Right, Ad Colony, just fix it.
We will. We'll fix the brand part as well. We'll take care of it all.
Somebody should just fix it. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about what you're trying to do with mediation. I think Rovio, you're building your own, I guess. You have your own. There you are. We're not good at it. We're building our own. We're looking at other solutions at the same time, in case while we go through the pipeline, somebody comes and goes, "Oh, we've already built that, and it's better than your thing." and we're happy to integrate to that. The other thing is as well, you should be careful with your product team thinking what they've built is the best mediation tool ever, because it won't be. Because somebody else out there just thinks about mediation all the time. So be open to have that conversation, even if you have built your own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems to me to be the kind of service where, like you mentioned, it's all about scale.
Yeah.
Right, but at the moment one company gets big enough, that's going to be the company, then it's going to be maybe one or two on the side. I think we've seen kind of similar things happen on the attribution side during the last 2 years. There used to be tons. I hear the same names more and more and more, and you know, it's just a business that benefits from scale, so there's an evolution in there. So going even deeper into the game, analytics, segmentation of user bases, segmentation of your players, having different player groups that get a different frequency of ads, get different types of ads, approaches to this. Baptiste, how are you guys doing that, or how are you thinking about it at UB?
Yeah, we do that on, it's a very candid way. What we do, and it's in line with what I was saying earlier, so we do games, free-to-play games, so basically what we do is that we do a favor to our players, in a way, by giving away for free some stuff that our teams have been working on for months. Some of our players will repay the favor directly through in-app purchases. Some won't, and so we consider that it's more than fair to ask them to repay us the favor by at least watching an ad. So that's the starting point. From that, what we try to do is to offer a totally free experience for first hour and a half, first 2 hours, depending on the game, on the genre, on the sessions, on the intensity of engagement of our players. And then we start to show ads to non-players. And the more they play, the more they engage, the more we will increase the ad intensity. So we don't use a very complex tracking system. Basically, it's paying, non-paying, yes or no, and it's how long have you been in the game for. So you've passed XP level 10, you're gonna get this type of ads, static, interstitial, and you're gonna have one every 4 races.
So why don't you go deeper? Is it too much work? Or don't you think that it's going to be worth the effort?
Well, we're gonna go a bit deeper, and we're about to by accounting as well for the country, and the conversion rates in the countries, and the capacity of our players to pay different amounts of money. So this is something that we run in parallel on both in-app purchase and advertising front to try and adapt our pricing and the payouts for different regions and different types of players. And along that, we're going to as well adapt our advertising strategy and intensity based on how much revenue we can expect out of one single player. And we don't feel we need to go far deeper than that. But
so I'll ask you a question again, Willem. I'm going to grill you here now. I have a sneaking suspicion that in Angry Birds Go and Angry Birds Epic, the people who generate the most amount of ad revenue are actual payers. Is that true? Or
that might be true. I actually don't have the latest figures on that, but it's all quite data intensive, the way that we've finalized the ad approach for a game throughout the soft launch and while in global launch, being globally available as well, we conduct A/B tests all the time to optimize the ad experience. We, as I'm imagining everyone does, we do measure ad ARPDAU and ARPDAU separately, naturally, and we keep our finger on that pulse really carefully, making sure that the ad experience is not a deterrent for the players. Well, and you see that in churn, you see that in retention, you see that in ratings as well. And ratings is definitely something that's worth reading through what people are complaining about. And in terms of turning on and off ads depending on segmentation, yeah, we do. But it's also a game by game approach. And usually if we turn it off, then it's the interstitials that are being turned off for payers. The reward videos, as I already mentioned, they stay in. We've noticed that players actually want them to stay in regardless if they paid or not. And I think in general we're trying to move away from static interstitials by and large, and go for more of a native rich experience in terms of advertising.
Cool. Let me conduct something that never ever works, but see if maybe it works here. Can all game developers or people who work for game companies that actually make games raise their hands? Cool. So, no, keep them up. Sorry, my bad. If you have ads in your game, keep your hand up. If not, take it down. Of those of you that are game companies that have ads in your game, how many of you are looking at ad ARPDAO? If you took down your hand, go home and change, right? Because I mean, it's a very valid point as well. It's gonna be a key metric, similar to ARPDAO or to what have you. So, awesome. Sal, any thoughts?
I'm not going to touch on. I'm going to touch on the point that you just raised. I mean, let's get one thing clear, right? It's the companies on this stage are of different varying sizes, of course, but we're able to dedicate resource to that, right? You have an internal sales team for ads. We do as well. You know, Ubisoft has like a million people, right? So it's kind of it's hard to say to some game developers in here who might be a 3-man team, a 4-man team, still very successful, but to spend time looking at ad ARPDAO, right? They're like, oh God, why? I mean, I want to talk about, you know, my engagement or my core loops not working. I think I can improve the monetization there. So I think to take away from that, the point is you can't just integrate an SDK. You can't just think, oh, I put this thing in, I'm going to show some ads, and that's the job done. It's not, there's so much more to optimize. So if you're seeing not much return from your ads, it's probably because you haven't looked into it that much. So it is, I wouldn't kind of think it's the SDK's fault or what you guys are doing. It does take time, and you do need to dedicate resource to it. It's not easy. But if you do dedicate resource to it and your game justifies it as well, if you have like 10 players in your game, probably not worth doing it. But if you have 100,000, 200,000, it starts becoming a bit more meaningful for a company of that size. Actually, it needs to be a lot more than that. But then you should dedicate some time, and the rewards are worth it because it's not that much time actually. It's just enough where it starts making sense.
Also, I think interesting to add to that is when I talk to developers, I realized that among them, you know, the people don't really talk about their ad revenues and stuff. So I talk to a developer and they say like, oh, I have an eCPM of $1. But, you know, if they would talk to another developer might say, oh, mine is $3. And another would say like, oh, mine is $5. So, you know, I mean, maybe that's just an easy first step to take. Just talk about it with other developers and see which networks they use and how much they get, and then, you know, what geographics and demographics work for them and stuff. It's just like, you know, it could be as easy as that.
Cool. Let's before we open up for some questions, I want to do a quick exercise. So, relatively briefly, describe who is responsible for ad monetization in your company and where in the company is that person placed. Are they in the marketing team, in the games team, in the product team? Who does it and who's responsible for it?
So FGL is a very small team, and it's basically one of the co-founders, Adam Schroeder, and me, who are mostly on top of all the mobile projects and the mobile monetization. We discuss it daily.
I want to say everybody, but that's not true. We have a director of advertising who came from web. He's knocking around here, Peter Koyman. He's kind of responsible for it, but then our product managers are kind of responsible for it as well. I'm kind of responsible for it. Our CEO is kind of responsible for it. We haven't delineated it to the extent where it's like one person or one team is just going to be responsible for it, because it is integrated to the game. So we think it's very, very important for whether it's your GM, product manager, or the person who owns the user experience, that they have input on that, on how you implement ads and how you monetize the game overall. So it's difficult to just say one person's going to make the call on this. So we're still figuring it out, and maybe Wilhelm, of you guys, I mean, you're probably far more down the line than we are.
So it's ultimately it's the advertising team's turf in Rovio, and they sit within a commercial office.
So they can override the game designer? Say,
They
we're going to have ads here.
They work then closely. It's not like they can dictate and mandate that this is what you do, but they work closely with the game designer, EP, and also product manager to make sure that it's captured well inside of the game. They have a P&L responsibility for ads, so naturally then that kind of then falls under their responsibility, but the actual implementation is a joint effort.
Yeah, so we're not that big. Ubisoft mobile specifically. I mean, Ubisoft as a whole is huge, as you know, but the mobile division itself has been created 2 years ago, somehow. Yeah, a bit more than that now. And we're only like maybe 30 people at HQ working on the mobile game, so it's not big at all. So I'm in charge of ad strategy, along with what I do with studios on in-game economy and stuff. So I share my time with both functions. So in the organization, I'm on the business side of it, but I know it's been generating a lot of discussions between my managers about where should I be. No, I mean I'm on the business side. The particularity I'd say for Ubisoft is that we're working with I'm working with maybe 10, 12 different studios working on mobile games all along the year. So we have very different situations given the studio we work with in terms of seniority, in terms of understanding of the mobile business and the free-to-play business. So for some projects, I'll be handling almost everything from where to put ads to which partners to which frequency to which segmentation to which whatever. And for some others, such as Future Games of London, for instance, obviously they have already a lot of experience on how to run a free-to-play business and how to run ads. So with FGO, it's more of a collaborative experience where I try to bring what I can to them and learning as well from what they've been doing. So it's kind of mixed situation given the studios I've been working on.
So I mean, because in my experience, and I talk to so many game companies, I almost always end up talking to someone in the marketing team who can't actually make a decision because they have to go to their product team and do that. So. What I would like to close on, I believe that this year there's gonna in our gaming industry, there's probably, I would guess there's gonna be 200 to 300 people who are this year gonna get hired as, let's call it, ad monetization manager. Someone who's, because I think the way things are going, more and more game companies say we need to have a person who just does this, optimizes it, make sure we get the most out of it, pick out which partners we work with, etc. So I think there's going to be a big demand for that. We're going to start seeing someone's going to make up a title for it or what have you, and we're going to see that. So that type of person who works with probably a couple of games, so it's maybe not for the small indies, but when you have a couple of games running, you're making double-digit percentage revenues coming out of ads. So maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, thereabout. So you need to hire a person like this. What would you be looking for? Like what kind of skill set would you believe that a person like this should have? Is it, you know, a failed game designer who really understands the games, or is it a marketer who likes to make money instead of spend money? Like, where would you be looking? Who would you hire?
Which marketer likes to make money and not spend money? So that's one. We've kind of just hired that because we've had it on the web for a long time. We kind of call that a programmatic specialist, I guess.
Sounds like you deal with robots.
It's not great, yeah. I mean, sorry, he's actually somebody who's in our company.
Yeah.
No, it's great, it's fantastic. Yeah, we kind of have that. It's
And what are you looking for? Like, is it an Excel person? Is it a business person?
It's a data person.
Huh?
It's a data person.
Data person.
Yeah, it has to be a data person. Yeah, because they need to. I mean, if you're going to, I mean, with the way that this works, you've got to be, you know, proficient with understanding numbers. I mean, I see Saikala, our UA specialist. It's kind of like what she does, but on the other side, I suppose.
But I would argue a little bit against that, because I used to be on the marketing side for sure.
Great.
And I mean, I think that there is so much more money that can be made by just integrating the ads better.
Sure.
And if you're a hardcore data person, you're gonna say my Excel computes . You don't have the Fingerspitzgefühl in German, the sense of the game, right?
But that's why I don't think that one person can just operate in a silo or in a kind of on his own.
Yeah.
That person's got to go out and figure that out as well with the product team, because they're not going to be experts at the user experience and not going to be the experts of where to place it. Right? That's what your business intelligence will help that person do. So, you know, yeah, good, great, good. That's a consideration for us now. But we're learning. I think there's no way great for the job market, 300 people. That's brilliant. Globally. All right, okay. I just think at this moment, in truth, in all honesty, we struggle to find really good talent across our business. I think you know you're lucky in Holland in particular, in Utrecht. There's been a lot of investment in that. I think you've got some good things happening in Berlin. Finland obviously is just killing it, right? It seems like everybody's there, but just companies probably having better training programs and actually starting to understand that we can't just find that person. They don't exist in a complete package. This is such a unique industry with unique metrics, with unique KPIs. We invented an entire language. The fact that we could be on stage here, all say DAO, MAO, ARPU, and all this stuff, and all understand what's going on. Anybody from outside, who's probably the best data scientist in the world, would just go, what the hell are they talking about? And you know, that's okay. That's okay. So I think we need to, as an industry, start, you know, just creating that ecosystem, because otherwise we will not persist as Hollywood has, as you know, these great content industries have done, because that's essentially what we're making.
Yeah, what I would be looking for is an IT person that plays game. That's
it's a very condensed way. Very good. Yeah.
I've just hired someone to handle more the live ops stuff for monetization, and that's just what I got. Smart guy, analytics, and likes games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sure.
What I'm wondering is, you were talking about getting brands more involved. Why wouldn't you get someone from web advertising that is used to getting brands with video apps or so? See, that's where you're missing the connection. You actually don't want a game, or you want someone
No, we have. No, we have. We have. That's what we've done. That is exactly what we've done. And there you go. You get a. We have done that. The problem is these big media buying agencies, if you know the agency model, they pretty much have the plans predefined, and you know they churn out people so quickly that they aren't looking at that thing. So it's an education within that organization and that agency. We can get the talent to come in, that's for sure. It's about then getting into those organizations and into that industry to have us within their marketing plans. And that requires education. But otherwise, yes.
1 second, is the mic coming there? Oh, there we go.
Thanks. And it's not because I was a toy. Okay, so the question is, but I really want one. Thanks. And so the question, it also concerns Rovio, because recently, and I want to congratulate you on the soft launch of Angry Birds Fight. And I must say that I was really surprised to see the cross-promo banners in it. And I wanted to ask, what is the best strategy on the soft launch when you really plan to include much of advertising into your game?
So, thank you. Angry Birds Fight is out in a few Asian countries at the moment. The ad integration is not finalized in that game yet, and ongoing heavy A/B testing across the whole service of that game at the moment. And what was the last part of your question?
Strategy for the companies like us, which is studying what to plan for the soft launch.
Yeah, I think soft launch is in general, depending on how you approach it, but in general about incremental improvement. So I'm of the philosophy that you should launch a minimum awesome product. I like that term far better than viable. Viable seems so small. So really have something that you are proud of. I think in this day and age, there's a lot of good games. There's almost 200 games launching on iOS every day. So as you go into soft launch, you better be proud of what you have already there and then, and it better be really good. And then optimize incremental improvements. If you see big issues, naturally you should fix those also. And if there are some even feature A/B tests that you could do, that's also great. But it is really about optimizing that service, in my opinion.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I actually have a question. It's about cross-promotion. Do you actually attribute like a CPM to your cross-promotion efforts? Because, I mean, there is value in the impressions there as well, right?
Yes.
So do
I'm
we.
looking at site, yes. I guess yes. We do, right? She's looking confused. Yes. I'll say yes. Yeah. No, we do actually. No, we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. I was wondering, you talked about integrating brand in games, but do you think it's useful to go a step further? For example, replace. Think about Candy Crush, where you don't play with candy, but you can play with Pepsi bottles, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what these guys did that. That's native. That's product placement. Totally. Mondelez's biggest mistake is not going to King when they saw King had the biggest candy-based game in the world and not branding it up with everything. That's their biggest mistake. And imagine what they would have to pay now, if you think about it. I mean, it'd be ridiculous. So yeah, if you can get those deals, you should totally do it. You guys did something with Jenga, I remember, in Angry Bird Go.
Jenga was it was through the partnership we have with Hasbro, and yeah, there is a Jenga mode. We've gone quite far on the physical, on connecting the physical and digital world through our toy partnerships. In terms of product placement, I mean, this is I was trying to sell those types of deals in the J2ME era to partners worldwide. That didn't go down so well, unfortunately. It was a little bit early, but we're actually there now. It can be done. The downloads for games carrying somewhat significant IP are really high, and the DAO and the MAO and the ARP DAO that we talked about, they're really like we have a solid foundation in this industry to do this now, and the experience is that immersive for a player that actually it does make sense for brand advertisers as well. Then it's, of course, I mean, if with a very small indie game, it's far more challenging to make those deals happen naturally. But for bigger companies out there, I absolutely think that this is something you should go ahead with.
I shouldn't talk for other companies, but I know he wouldn't mind. Hutch Games released a game called MMX Racing, and they did a brand kind of deal similar to what you're discussing with Monster, the energy drink, and they actually put the branding on their app icon, and not just from the fact that they had the brand. Well, they attribute the fact that the branding was on that players actually assumed it was a higher quality because the brand was associated with it, and I think they saw very significant increases in downloads from that app icon, so they've kept it. So it was a campaign for a month, and I think they kept it going because actually they get better reception from the audience because it gives credibility, because that's what that brand will also do for you as well. So it's definitely, if you can get those deals, you should totally go for it.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting because like every year there's like some top lists published of like brands that people like and top lists of brands that people dislike. So before you start a partnership, check if they're not like in the dislike one. Yeah.
Do it with BP after
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it could work for Hungry Shark Evolution, maybe, right? Okay, guys, that's all the time we have.